Good morning, guys. Today I want to focus on this unit number 10, Human Genetics Review. Again, I have 15 minutes. I'm going to do this as fast as I can and see if I can get through all of the problems, or at least most of them. I want to start with number 5 just because it takes me some time to draw the pedigrees and it would take up too much time in the video. So I'll come back up to question 1 after I go over this. So on a pedigree. There's two problems in number 5. The one on the left is the recessive, and the one on the right is a dominant trait. Okay, so in this problem, we're going to use D's. Capital D meaning dominant, lowercase d meaning recessive. So on the left-hand side, this is a recessive pedigree. Anyone who is filled in, who is shaded in, has the trait, which is recessive. Okay, so because they have a recessive trait, and we're going to use D's, we automatically know what their genotype is. They're automatically lowercase d, homozygous recessive because they have a recessive trait. Now, the other people which are not shaded in, we know they don't have the trait. So that means they have to have at least one dominant allele. So if you notice, I'm going to go through, I'm going to put a capital D for each one of the people that was not shaded in. Now I have to go back and figure out their second allele because you always have two. Okay, so you see the people in generation 1, the mom and dad, they have a daughter that is recessive. She has two lowercase d's. One of those lowercase d's, the recessive alleles, had to have come from each parent. So I'm going to make them each heterozygous. I'm going to use the same logic throughout the rest of this. Okay, so you see how this son is recessive? That means each one of his parents had to carry a recessive allele. Okay, now come down here. This daughter is recessive, so she got one recessive allele from dad, which makes sense because he only has two, but one of them had to have come from mom. Okay, now the last question is this daughter right here. Okay, so let's say she got the dominant allele from dad. What did she get from mom? Did she get a lowercase d or a capital D? We don't know. We don't have enough information to figure it out. So this is where you either put the dash, or if you like the question mark, do that. So either D dash or D question mark, they mean the same thing. We don't know the person's entire genotype. Okay, now let's come over to the dominant one over here. In this case, anyone that's shaded in has the dominant trait. So we know that these people have at least a capital D. Okay, we'll come back for the second letter in a second. Anyone who's not shaded in, we know they don't have a dominant trait, which means they're automatically recessive. So these people have to be lowercase d, lowercase d. Okay, now let's go back and fill in the second alleles. I'm going to use the same logic I used over here. Let's look at this son. He has two recessive alleles. One had to come from dad, one had to come from mom. So I'm going to add a lowercase d to each one of those people. They are heterozygous. Okay, I'll come back to these two in a second. So let's come over here. This dad, we need to figure out a second letter. Let's look at his daughter. His daughter has two lowercase d's. One of them had to come from him. So he's heterozygous. Okay, let's look at the son. He has dominant allele, but look at his mother. His mother has two recessive alleles, so we know she automatically gave him one. So this guy is heterozygous. Okay, now the last question we've left are these two. Okay, so these two, we know, let's say dad gave each one of these the dominant allele. What did mom give them? A dominant allele or recessive allele? We don't have enough information because they don't have any kids that we can analyze, so we're not sure. So again, I'm going to put D dash, or again, if you like the question mark, put the question mark. Okay, I'm going to erase this, and then I'm going to start back at the top. Again, I know if I went over that real quick, you guys can just pause the video and just kind of rewatch it or pause it and fill it in. Okay, so number 1 says, what is a karyotype? A karyotype is a picture of all of your chromosomes. So I'm just going to write picture of all chromosomes. CHR means chromosome. Okay, there's another part of this question that says, how are males and females different on a genetic level? Males have the sex chromosomes X and Y, whereas females always have two X chromosomes. I guess I shouldn't say always. There are some exceptions, like Turner syndrome. If you have a Y chromosome, it makes you male. If you don't, it makes you female. In general, there are some slight exceptions to that, but we're going to go with generalities here. Okay, question 2. What's the difference between a sex chromosome and an autosome? Okay, so sex chromosomes determine your sex. Okay, so there's specifically a spot on the Y chromosome called the sex determining region, and because it's on the Y chromosome, if you have the sex determining region, it makes you develop into a male. If you don't have that Y chromosome, which means you don't have that sex determining region, you develop as a female. Okay, autosomes, on the other hand, are the other chromosomes. So these are chromosomes 1 through 22. They have all the other genes that you need for survival. Now, the sex chromosomes also have some important genes on them besides ones that determine sex, but they're called sex chromosomes because they determine your sex. Okay, 3. Does the male or female determine the sex of an offspring? Okay, so let's think about it. A male makes sperm. So I'm going to draw a sperm here. I'm going to draw 2 of them. Okay, so because males are XY, half of the sperm carry an X chromosome, half carry a Y chromosome. But let's look at a female. Females make eggs. So these are going to be eggs, these circles. Females are XX. So every single egg carries an X chromosome. So which one do you think determines the gender? Hopefully you're saying it right now. The answer is the male. So I'm just going to put a star right here. You guys can answer it. Males determine gender because they have some sperm with X and some sperm with Y. So this is why 50% of children come out female, 50% male, because it depends which sperm fertilizes the egg. The egg doesn't matter in terms of gender because it's always carrying an X chromosome. Okay, number 4, what is a pedigree? A pedigree are the things we just did at the beginning. Number 5, they are the family trees. But they're more than just a family tree. They're family trees that show the inheritance of a genetic trait. So family trees that depict the inheritance of a genetic trait. Okay, 6. Besides genetic factors, what else influences your phenotype, the way you look? So think about it. The things you are exposed to in the environment, like the food that you eat, the amount of sun you obtain, the amount of radiation you're exposed to. These things affect the way you look and how your phenotype is expressed. So the answer is the environment. So this is the nature versus nurture argument. They both play a role. Your genes play a huge role, but so does the environment you're raised in. Okay, 7 deals with blood types. It says there are 3 alleles that determine blood type. They are IA, IB, and lowercase I. Please don't use just an A, B, and an O. I saw some of you guys doing that on the blood type problems. These are the ways you show the alleles. Okay, it says, and the alleles blank and blank are codominant. So I'm going to just start filling in some of the sentence here just so you guys can see it. And the alleles IA and IB, those are the 2 underlined words, are codominant while I is recessive. Okay, so that's just showing your understanding of the different alleles and how blood types work. Okay, I'm going to erase this. Again, I got to go through this quickly because I only have 15 minutes. I'm already 9 minutes in. For number 8 or 7, there's a big chart on the side. It has different geno and phenotypes, and they each have one part filled in. The first one is IA. Okay, so because we have 2 of the IA alleles, this person will have a blood type or phenotype A. Okay, so the next one says blood type AB. The only way it can be I or AB is if you have one of the IA and one of the IB alleles. Okay, the next one says IB lowercase I. Because they have one dominant allele and one recessive allele, they automatically express the dominant allele, which is B. Okay, so the next one says type O blood. O is recessive. The only way to have a recessive trait is to carry both recessive alleles. Okay, the next one is heterozygous for the I allele because they have one A and A recessive. That person's blood type A. And then finally, homozygous for the IB allele is automatically blood type B. Okay, that was 7. Well, that was still 7, I guess. I'm going to do 8 over here, a Punnett square. Okay, so it says, what is the phenotypic ratio that results when a heterozygous type A male? Okay, so heterozygous type A means this. They have one of the A alleles and one recessive allele, heterozygous, one of each, and they mate with a type AB female. So type AB is IA, IB. Okay, then take a second, fill in the Punnett square. IA, 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 IB, IB, I. Okay, now let's do the phenotypic ratio. So these two boxes represent 50% type A. This box represents 25% type AB, and this box represents 25% B. Okay, I'm going to erase that. Okay, flip to the back. Number 9, I want you to skip it. Because we're doing this online school, I cut a little piece of this chapter out. There were some dihybrid Punnett squares involved in this chapter where we talk about blood types in relationship to the ABO blood group and the positive minus blood group. But because we're doing online school right now, I decided to cut that part out. And it's still on the review. So you can skip question 9. You guys don't even know how to do it unless you could probably figure it out. If you want to try it for a challenge, go ahead. But you got to incorporate 2 different blood types in there. Okay, so number 10. What are sex-linked traits and which chromosomes are usually responsible for it? So sex-linked traits are traits that are determined by genes on the sex chromosome, so the X or Y. So traits determined by X or Y chromosome. And which chromosome is usually responsible? X is generally responsible. Okay, the reason being is the X chromosome is really large. I think it's like 1,000 genes on it, and the Y chromosome is really tiny and only has about 100 or so genes on it. Also, every single person on the earth has an X chromosome. You need it to live. Only 50% of people, males, have a Y chromosome. Okay, 11. Why are sex-linked traits much more common in males than females? Okay, so males like me have one X chromosome, one Y chromosome. Females, you have 2 X's. If a female has one mutated copy of their X chromosome, they have a backup because they have 2 of them. But me, like color blindness, my X chromosome's messed up. I don't have a backup copy because it's the color vision gene is only on the X chromosome. My Y can't serve as a backup. So the answer is because males only have one X chromosome. Okay, there's a second part of the question. Why is the genotype of a father unimportant when investigating sex-linked traits? So let's think about me. I'm colorblind. Why am I colorblind? Because my mom gave me a messed up X. Think about it. I got an X and a Y. X came from mom, Y came from dad. So which parent was the important one? Mom. She gave me the X. Dad's genotype doesn't matter. Okay, so the answer to the second part is because dads pass Y chromosomes to sons. They don't determine most sex-linked traits because sex-linked traits are generally determined by the X chromosome. Okay, I have less than a minute left. So I'm not going to have time to do any other questions. Number 12 is just a Punnett square related to color blindness. We did a bunch of those like 2 weeks ago. 13 X chromosome inactivation is when one of a woman's 2 X chromosomes just turns off and leaves them with one functioning X chromosome. The other one, the one that gets shut off, turns to something called a bar body. 14 non-disjunctions when chromosomes fail to pull apart during anaphase. So the gamete either ends up with one extra or one missing chromosome. So that can lead to things like Down syndrome. Okay, and then finally 15, if I have time, Down syndrome is when a person has 47 chromosomes. So they're either 47XX or 47XY, depending if they're male or female. Turner's is a female with 45 chromosomes, but only one X chromosome. And Klinefelter's is a condition with men where they have 47